All right, and Christopher Daniels of Impact Wrestling.
The fallen angel himself.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. How are you, Chris?
I'm great, man.
Excellent.
It's great to be me.
So you got the big show, SLAMMIVERSARY 11. Can't believe it's been 11 years.
Yeah, I know. It's flying by, isn't it?
Coming to Boston, the Agganis Arena, this coming Sunday, June 2nd. It's going to be live on pay-per-view. Tickets are still available for those of us in Boston that want to go.
Absolutely.
And your match, big 4-team elimination tag team for the titles, right?
Yeah, for the tag team titles. There's a lot of talent in that ring that night, so it's gonna be hard work, but nothing I can't handle.
I think we know who's going to come out on top, Chris. Come on now.
Well, I'm already positive. I've already bet my mortgage on it, so I mean I'm all set.
Safe bets
probably
only.
do the same.
Right. Well, that's well, it sounds like he's been a bit of a bad influence on us here.
There you go.
Very
oh,
nice.
thank you, thank you.
Very nice.
Intended.
Yeah, that's why they pay me the bucks.
Of course.
So just starting out, we had Bully Ray was actually in the building today. He wasn't on with us, but
he was on with another radio program, and one of the guys who was talking to him, they were getting into a story, and he was asking Bully about being an athletic person, and he, Bully had said something to the extent of oh well I'm a pretty athletic guy, I'm a pretty good athlete, and there was a long pause. This guy said, and then he just said, well, I think you're a mediocre athlete.
The guy said that, or Bully said that?
The host said it to Bully.
Wow.
And
now, does he strike you as the type that would take a comment like that lightly?
Probably not. Did he say that live?
He
Like
said
to
it.
his face?
He said it live to his face, and apparently,
I thought it was a little ballsy move myself.
And what was Bully's reaction?
well, Bully, he said something.
TFY?
Well, Bully said apparently something to the extent of, well, you must be like a Jeff Hardy guy. Jeff Hardy's a big, he's a really good athlete, very athletic. And he goes, yeah, Jeff Hardy's athletic. You're pretty mediocre.
It just got
What an
awkward.
ass.
Yeah, thank you.
Very awkward. And I mean, I guess, he's trying to egg him on and trying to get, that heel interview out of Bully, but you don't really have to go too far to get a heel interview out of Bully if you really want it. He performs his ass off.
He doesn't seem like the type that I would try to egg on.
No, certainly not.
Nah.
Especially when he's sitting across from me. It's one thing.
What a ridiculous statement.
Yes.
What an uneducated statement to make. Oh, well. Lots of stupid people in this world, apparently. Some of them had jobs in radio.
Thank you.
Jesus.
Now,
Well,
obviously.
luckily we're not talking to a mediocre athlete here.
Not at all.
Absolutely not.
No. I mean,
And I'm not talking to stupid radio hosts.
Well,
right now.
thank you very much.
We're all good.
make sure
Now-
to keep that clip.
Yes, that's being replayed over and over. But speaking of which, you in your career, I mean, when I had first learned about you back in your ROH days, I was really shocked to find out your age, and now being an athlete of 43 years old.
Right.
How do you keep doing it, man? I mean, you're in great shape, and still
thanks, man.
you're
Thanks.
performing like like back in the old ROH days, back in the mid '90s when you were signed to WWE.
Well, the truth of the matter is, I mean, all of us in this business are sort of always keeping our finger on the pulse of like fitness and what's new and what helps and what works. But the truth of it is, like, in the last couple of years, I've been fortunate enough to sort of hang around with guys that help push me and I push them to sort of, be the best we can be, especially when we're on the road.
Right.
One of them, first and foremost is my best friend, Frankie Kazarian, also my tag team partner. Like, when we're on the road, we're pushing each other to work out, like, first thing in the morning, last thing at night, whatever it is, man. We both know that part of the job is hitting the gym and finding ways to, we both are getting up there in years. I'm a little bit older than Frankie, but, we realize that longevity is the key, and so we're looking for things that are going to prolong our career. We've both gotten into yoga. We've both gotten into, like, full-body, high-intensity interval training.
Wow.
Things like P90X and one of the things that I use now is George St. Pierre's Rush Fit DVD workout series, which is really good. And I mix a bunch of different things up, man. I've done, what's called the Spartacus workout. You can find that in Men's Health magazines. Like, I've done a bunch of different things, and like, the trick is just motivating each other and pushing each other to make sure we hit the gym and and get it done. I mean, the beauty of being a professional wrestler, you know, as your profession versus as a hobby, is that your job is you're the product, and so keeping that product in tip-top shape is the priority. And so, you know, whether it's a day that I wrestle or a day that I don't wrestle, a day where I'm at home in California, my job is make sure I hit the gym. And so, you know, when I think of it like that, it's easy for me, especially looking at, you know, my wife is a substitute teacher, and she goes to work at 7 in the morning and gets off at 3.
Mm-hmm.
If I can't find an hour in that period of time to go do my job, then I'm a schlub. You know what I mean? And Frankie feels the same way. When we don't hit the gym, we feel like, you know, big bags of mayonnaise, and that's not cool.
Well, and you know, it's almost like you know, it's like you've found the fountain of youth over there in California. Maybe it's in the Libre tar pits. I don't know. Maybe
it is, man. Well, I mean, you know, the truth of it is, I've been able to do what I like to do for a living for a long time, and that motivates me too, to know that, you know, I could be digging ditches and I'm not.
Yeah.
I could be like breaking bigger rocks into smaller rocks. And so, you know, I get to wrestle for a living and doing things that I watched as a kid, doing, you know, hopefully making fans feel the way that I felt watching the guys that I liked watching growing up. If I know I'm doing that and I'm making a living doing it, I mean, there's no excuse, you know. So, I mean, that has a lot to do with it. I'm still having fun. I still love what I do. You know, the minutia of the day notwithstanding, at the end of it all, I'm doing what I like, and so that certainly helps me sort of keep a positive focus on everything.
The old, you never work a day in life if you love what you do, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Now, just reading off of your Wikipedia page, it says you were going.
Oh, that must be true then.
Well, of course it is.
Wikipedia.
But, of course it is. But some of the stuff I actually find interesting, and I like to confirm when I talk to people.
Gotcha.
We're fact checking right now.
When
I hear you.
You went to college to become an actor, is that correct? Now, what brought you into wrestling? Like, were you trying to be an actor, and you were like, "Oh, I like this a little bit better," and it's kind of a mixture of both?
Not really. What happened was, my degree's in theater, and when I graduated, I moved to the Chicago area to try and break into the Chicago theater scene up there. But it was really tough. I mean, yes, acting is tough, theater is tough, but the hard part of it was trying to find paying work.
Sure.
In reputable companies, and it was very tough. Like they wanted you to break in and sort of work for free and devote, you know, 80 hours of your week for free, which was tough. And I mean, I had another job, and I did a lot of children's theater. And the lady who I was seeing at the time, who is now my wife of almost 20 years, I told her at the time, I was like, you know what, if this thing doesn't work, I can always try and be a pro wrestler. And that was, you know, sort of tongue-in-cheek. But she knew I was a fan growing up, and, you know, even when we were dating, she, you know, I took her to the wrestling matches once or twice, and she knew that I liked it, and she knew that I watched it. And she found out about a wrestling school in Chicago and set up an appointment for me to meet the owner.
Wow.
The school was Windy City Pro Wrestling. The owner was Sam DeCero. And she said I came out of that sort of with stars in my eyes, like they won me over. They sold me. And so I decided to give it a shot, and, you know, with the idea that if I washed out, if I wasn't any good, at least I could tell my kids, hey, your dad tried this for a little while. And because I grew up watching it, I had like a frame of reference going through the training, and so it didn't take me very long to learn how to do everything. So like I started it in January of '93, and I wrestled my first match in April of '93, and by my third match, I had won my first championship.
Wow.
I did read that, yeah.
Yeah, and then when once I had that sort of initial success, it sort of kept the flame burning. Like, I don't know if I would have stuck with it if it took me, you know, 2 years to wrestle my first match, or if, you know, I didn't win a match for 4 years. I can't say, oh yeah, I'd still have that passion for it. But I mean, like at that time, I kept at it, and that was where I learned, like those first couple of years, that's where you learn that you only know a little bit.
Right.
Like, everything you know, or the thing that makes you successful, you learn those things like actually wrestling matches in front of live fans. You don't learn it in just, you know, wrestling your pal in the wrestling school in front of 2 other guys. So I was very fortunate that, you know, I had good people looking out for me and giving me help when I needed it. and I had certain breaks fall my way, and you know, I avoided serious injury for a very long time, and I was very fortunate to learn a lot of that stuff on the fly that you learn. Like, you learn what works in front of a crowd, what doesn't work, and you know, I was also fortunate to work so many different styles of people in front of so many different styles of fans that it helped me become a commodity. Like, I got to the point where I could wrestle a guy that I had just met like an hour previous. I could wrestle anybody and have a good match with him. And that made me a commodity to a lot of promoters. And that's what I tell, you know, like, young guys coming up. Like, when you become so comfortable that you can wrestle a complete stranger and have a good match, you know, that's when you become a commodity to promoters. So many guys get trained in their backyard and they stay there. I don't mean their backyard literally, but
Yeah.
Right.
you know what I mean? They get trained where they train, and they wrestle the same people, and they wrestle there for years and years, and they never grow. They're only as good as the best guy in that group. And you know, I tell guys, as soon as they get an opportunity, they need to sort of cut those ties and go around and wrestle as many different people and places as they can to get that variety of experience.
It sounds like also natural instinct came into it a lot too. It seems like one of those things that, you know, you can only train so much. You have to get it when you get in.
Yeah,
At least a natural part of
ability,
it.
natural
Right.
natural instinct, like you said, and of course, you know, it speaks to your drive, as you were talking about earlier with, you know, your training and whatnot. You don't want to be a schlub just sitting around. You worked. Obviously, you worked hard. If you won a championship 3 days in, well, 3 matches in.
Right.
Right. Well, yeah, and you know, like I said, I was fortunate that things came my way, but at the same time, when the opportunities arose, I was ready for them at that point.
Right.
You would jump
So,
in, right?
Yeah, it's not just, I wasn't given anything other than the chances, and my wrestling or my ability at that point made me or broke me.
Now, did you play sports growing up?
I did a little bit. I played a little soccer. I did a little wrestling, but nothing. You know, I wasn't like Kurt Angle or AJ Styles, who you know, those guys were, you know, state champions, and Kurt, obviously, who he is.
Yep.
You know, but I was athletic enough to understand the mentality of discipline in your training, and I think that's one of the things too that sort of carried me through, was like playing sports and doing that as a kid versus a lot of the guys that I met coming up through wrestling school were guys that never were athletic, just saw wrestling, and they had the misconception that because what they see on television looks so easy, like the pros make it look easy,
Right.
that it was easy. And so many of those guys were just couch potatoes. And, you know, I coming from, you know, even though it was like a mediocre sports background at best, it was a sports background, and I understood, you know, practice makes perfect, and I wasn't going to get good sitting on my couch. So, I mean, like, I was fortunate that I lived close enough to the school where I was there 4 days a week, and, you know, practicing for those 3 months that I did before I started wrestling, and then just being able to wrestle different places and find, you know, hustle and find work, that definitely helped me as well.
Going back to your acting, is that something that you want to pursue maybe in a later time, or is it that's kind of just back burner at this point?
It's not super back burner. I mean, I live in California, so I you know, I submit myself for stuff when I can.
Sure.
But I understand too that you know, pounding the pavement is a full-time job as well. And I mean, I would never diminish the accomplishments of any actor by saying, "Oh, I can do it any time." You know, there's a lot that goes into, you know, the actual craft and the actual, you know, hunting down work and finding it.
And you got a day
So,
job,
I mean,
so there's that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still, you know, 100% committed to doing the wrestling, and you know, if I can find time to do stuff, you know, I've been very fortunate in the sense that wrestling has sort of opened a couple of doors for me. You know, I've gotten some opportunities to do some commercials and some things, and yeah, I would love to, you know, if the opportunity arose, I would love to sort of pursue something later down the line. But I understand that it's not just going to come knock on the door too. So I mean, it's up to me to sort of pursue that with the full intent of getting something versus, you know, something will come around. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Again, just not sitting on your ass waiting for it.
Right.
Right. Obviously, you said you lived out in California. How does that affect your travel? I know you guys have left the Impact Zone, but back when it was in Florida, were you going back and forth every week like that?
I was flying every week.
Oh.
There's a delightful red-eye flight from Los Angeles to Orlando. I was on every week. Frankie and myself were both on it every week, and we're recognized by many of the flight attendants in the Delta system. So, but yeah, I mean that was one of the things too that happened. In the late '90s, the early 2000s, I got enough work on the East Coast. I was traveling enough, and I was very. I keep saying fortunate, but so much of it is fortune. The fact that I convinced promoters that it was worth flying me from the West Coast,
right,
to bring me in for their show. I mean, they saw it as monetarily worthwhile to spend that money to fly me from the West Coast. And I mean, there's so many guys that I know from the West Coast that never really caught a break because of the travel. They're proficient here on the West Coast. They never really, sort of went to the East Coast and made their name. And I was lucky enough to have done that before the economy sort of made it cost prohibitive.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, it was very. If it had happened to me later in my career, I may not have had the same success. But Ring of Honor and TNA, they both saw enough in me to continue to fly me from the West Coast the entire time they used me.
Not too shabby. Not too shabby at all.
Now, in the late '90s, of course, you're coming up. You're doing, you're getting your recognition. You do get that developmental deal with the WWE. What was it like? I mean, getting in there. I guess you're doing your thing. You're on different shows with them, and then all of a sudden, I believe it was you signed a 90-day deal, and then they kind of just let it go, or.
Yeah, it was never really a developmental deal the way that I think the word developmental deal is sort of understood now. Right. It was an opportunity to go through the dojos that Doris Funk Jr. was training.
Oh yeah.
Yep. At. And so I got the opportunity to do that, but once I did that, nothing really materialized out of it afterwards. I mean, I did a lot of dark matches and shotgun Saturday nights and things like that, but nothing really ever materialized. I never had that one match where they came to me and said, okay, well, this is your tryout. We're looking at this with the mentality that if you do well, we give you a job, and if you don't, we send you on your way. They just knew I was, when they would come to the West Coast or when they came close by, they knew that I was a good hand, and they used me. And I just feel like the WWE never really saw anything that they wanted to sink their teeth into or take that opportunity or take that chance on. So, I mean, it's their game, and their choices that they made, and while that didn't necessarily benefit me, it did give me the opportunity to go to Japan and go around the world with other companies. So if I look back on it and take a step back, I really can't complain that much.
Well, and certainly, I mean, it opened the door for you to head on over to ROH and really become like a founding father over there with a lot of guys that you're wrestling with still today in TNA with Joe and with Styles. I mean, what does it feel like to you to have been working in ROH and seeing your fellow alumni like Danielson and Cabana, Joe, Aries, AJ Punk, all now really on the top of the game? I mean, they're on the top of the game, on TV every week.
Right. It's cool, man. I mean, you share locker rooms with these guys, and we went through periods of time where we weren't as successful as we are, and we just sort of kept our nose to the grindstone. So it's cool to see, especially guys like Bryan Danielson, doing so well in WWE, especially when 5 years ago it might have been inconceivable that he would be doing so well just looking at their track record.
Yeah.
But I mean, you look at it now, and he's one of the most entertaining guys on the roster. He's one of the most featured guys on the show, and and that has a lot to do with his mentality too. He went around places where there were times where the most important part was his in-ring ability, and the most important and other times where the entertainment factor was the most important part, and he knew how to sort of blend the two and sort of let one be featured when the time was right. And I think that's a testament to his the fact that he worked everywhere and was, got that variety under his belt, where he knew, when he had to go out there and be a workhorse, he could, but when he had to go out there and sort of, do the song and dance, he could do that as well.
But I think it speaks to all you guys as well, because I think you all can do that. Every single one of you have that that mentality that it's the in-ring work, but also the personalities, and it shows right now during your Bad Influence gimmick with Kazarian, and even your Fallen Angel, your run as that, and even to say Curryman. It's
right,
yeah. you have the total package, if you can say. You're the Lex Luger without being Lex Luger.
Well, I appreciate that, and especially now with the stuff happening with me and Frankie, we sort of went out and had an idea to just go out there and be ourselves and be the smart-ass, snarky dudes that we are in the locker room or in the car when we're driving to the gym or to the shows, and we found an audience for that. Like, somehow that sort of clicked, and the company kept giving us opportunities to go out there and not just on the microphone but in the ring, just sort of be these guys, and we've sort of taken that ball and ran with it, and I think that they've recognized that we rarely fall short of what we want to try and go out there and do.
Right.
And so they've given us that opportunity, and we've run with it. So good for us so far, man.
Absolutely, man. And and again, like you said, it speaks to your world traveling. And what is the main difference, do you think, between the U.S. wrestling organizations and the Japanese organizations? I mean, what do you see differently? Obviously, the matches are laid out differently, but fan-wise, everything else.
Well, my experience was there was a lot more, and I think a lot of that had to do with being a foreigner in that country. My experience in Japan was that they cared more about, because obviously I wasn't going to do, promos on the microphone or skits or anything. The main focus was on the in-ring ability, and there was more of a respect for the in-ring, the showmanship or the workmanship that you did in the wrestling ring. So that was my experience with it. But I think one of the reasons that I was successful over in Japan, especially doing the Curryman character, was that in a company filled with guys like Jushin Liger and Tiger Mask and Koji Kanemoto and all of the juniors that were there when I was there, I still stood out in terms of, like, I could get in there and wrestle with them, but also the character of Curryman, it sort of stood out with its presentation.
Right.
And, and then I recognized that the only way I was going to stand out is to stand out. I couldn't, try and out-wrestle. It didn't necessarily mean go out there and out-wrestle those guys. I just needed to be different enough so that, when someone took a step back and looked at the roster, I stood out. And so I was, that was the mentality to sort of be more of a fun-loving, fancy-free character. But when the time came, be able to go in there and hang with the guys I mentioned.
And we were actually talking off-air before this, and I mentioned that's one of the things that's attracting me more towards TNA now as opposed to WWE, is the more realistic characters. The characters seem to be more like the people that are portraying them.
Right.
And what comes through to me as a viewer is you guys seem to be having fun while you're out there, just being yourselves. And it's refreshing to see.
Yeah.
And that's sort of been exactly our game plan as far as Frankie and I go. We've just gone out there and, Frankie and I sort of kick ideas around back and forth, whether we're in the car or in the gym or whatnot. Like, hey, what if we tried this, or how do you think this would get, how would this be received? And, we both sort of have that same mentality and the same idea that we want to be that, even if you're entertained by what we do, we still want to be that unlikable, those sort of like slimy, sleazy characters, rather than being those cool heels where everybody wants to sort of be like them.
Right.
We like the idea of going out there and getting booed and being characters that you can firmly get against, rather than, yay us, boo us, that sort of flip, wishy-washy.
Just
like
one dimension, really.
Yeah.
The Appletini, where does it come from? Is that your favorite drink, or is that just is that part of?
It was one of those things. I had an idea to do a promo. This is actually from SLAMMIVERSARY last year. I had an idea to do a promo when I was going to toast the team, and the idea was, well, what drink would be instantly recognizable as what it is, and
right.
The Appletini came to mind, and It's funny that it was never meant to become part of the character. It was just supposed to be that one-time thing. But then the next couple of weeks, I just had opportunities to still have a drink in my hand and thought, well, this is, it still adds to that character. It still adds to oh, look at this douche.
Yes, exactly.
That you get when you look at me. And that's sort of, like I said, it's that character where, you sort of laugh at it, but at the same time, you're still like, oh, what a
ass.
That's still what we're going for. So.
That's wonderful. And of course, just reading through your Twitter a bit, you're not suicide, right?
Not me. No, I'm not.
I love the picture actually of you and Frankie with suicide.
Right. Yeah, you'd be surprised how many people still don't get it, but whatever.
It's still real to them, okay?
I guess.
They gotta know. They have to know these things. They're the burning questions out there.
Sure.
Yeah, and that was part of my I got on a rant too. Like everybody, I literally had in the last 3 or 4 weeks, I literally had 1 out of 3 questions was like, who's gonna play him? And my response is, who gives a
Yeah,
it's all right.
No,
we can
it's
say
fine.
shit.
You can
I
say
don't. I mean, let the guy, whoever it is, let that guy succeed or fail on his own. And if he does well, great. And if he doesn't, suicide will go back in the catacombs for a while. But judging on what happened this last week, I think that suicide might be around for a while. And
it was a great promo, actually.
I'm glad that it adds to the X division. With Kenny and Chris Sabin. And P.E. Williams coming back and Sanjay Dutt.
Which is great, yeah.
I think there's a good crowd now, a good crew in the X Division, and hopefully, I'm sure that the Ultimate X match this coming Sunday is going to be an eye-opener.
Now, speaking of Twitter, does it bother you a little bit more that fans have so much, I mean, I'm sure it's great because you have an outreach for fans. You can actually talk to fans, but I'm sure you get a lot of the trolling out there, and of course with the suicide comments out there. Does it ever you just want to turn it off and just say, why did I even do this thing?
No, a lot of the times anything that I get from Twitter, I sort of set myself up for because I go out there and ask for it a lot of times.
Yeah.
And occasionally there's somebody that crosses the line, and it's not so hard to hit block. So I mean, I usually just do that right away. And a lot of times I see how far I can push people. Like I get. My trick is, or not trick, but I mean my game plan is if somebody says something ridiculous enough that makes me want to respond, I just respond in a DM because I don't want to clutter up my timeline talking to idiots. I can just, give them some one-on-one time, and usually it only takes like 1 or 2 things for them to back off, and if they don't, like I said, block isn't so hard to hit. So.
Right. Although I did see, I'm just reading down a little bit, I did see you did reveal that the suicide was played by Taz. It's good to see that he can see
it's surprising too because you don't realize how slimming that outfit is.
Absolutely.
Until you wear it. So I was surprised. I happened upon him backstage as he was taking the hood off, and I thought, holy cow, I never would have guessed.
He's moving a lot quicker. He must be doing the P90X that you and Kazarian are doing.
You know what? When he was in ECW, he watched a lot of the Malenko Guerrero series and a lot of.
Right.
A lot of Hoovy and Rey Mysterio back in the day.
Psychosis.
You remembered it.
Yeah, always wanted to be a high flyer.
He doesn't do it all the time doesn't mean he can't do it. That's my point.
It's somehow that's some sort of weird Napoleonic complex, I imagine. Yeah. He can't fly that high. He can't. I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to get my ass kicked by Taz.
They are coming to town, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
There's a chance that he'll walk in here.
Hey, you know what? I'd be honored to take a suplex from Taz.
Okay.
Not through anything.
I'll let him know. He's always, every once in a while, trying to keep those muscles active, so I'll let him know.
Let him know. The doors might be locked. I'll open for him.
Speaking of moves, I got to ask, because one, I love that you named your moonsault best moonsault ever. That's the fun, cocky heel thing. But who exactly, what was your influence on that to be performing that? I mean, was it like your travels in Japan with Muda, Ultimo Dragon, or I mean, what was it that? Because it's a beautiful moonsault.
Well, honestly, the moonsault itself, just the moonsault, was something I was a big fan of. Watching Muda, like you said, and then like most pro wrestling moves, especially in this day and age, it sort of. It was an established move that I added my own little spin to, and so many guys do that these days. And so I was in Chicago, and there was a luchador that had come to train in Windy City, and he showed me the, bouncing from the second rope to the top rope. And it was just one of those things where I was like, oh, well, I can do that with this. And I stuck it together, and it worked out. And, I'm surprised more people don't do it. Not that it's easy, but with as many athletic guys and as many acrobatic guys as there are in professional wrestling these days, I'm surprised that not more people do, bouncing from the second to the top. I've noticed that Kofi Kingston has started to do it with his crossbody every once in a while, and so.
Well, and
every once in a while on Twitter, I get the best crossbody ever comment. So.
Well, and it adds to the performance. It just makes it look, and when you do it as smooth as you and Kofi do it, it's like it adds to it. It adds that beauty to it almost, and just makes it look just nice. It's all about the whole package, really.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a show, and I mean, it's one of the things that people have come to expect from me. So like 9 times out of 10, I'll try and do it. Give the paying customer what they want.
And mentioning Kofi, do you keep up with the WWE programming regularly?
Not really. I'll watch. Because I'm West Coast, I can sort of read the results, and if I think something's going to be good, I can watch. As it comes on.
Gotcha.
Because I'll read results from the East Coast, and then, oh, this sounds like a good match, or oh, this sounds like something worth watching.
Sure.
So a lot of times I'll record or watch it after the fact, just depending on who's on.
Gotcha. Is there any plans, or is there any even rumblings of going head to head with them at all?
Well, I mean, the goal is just growing our own product as we can. I mean, in the last 11 years, we've been fortunate enough to go from, the Wednesday pay-per-views to having the show on Fox Sports Net, to getting on Spike, and then, going from Saturday night to Thursday night to live, and now with the show on the road. It's not so much an idea of going head-to-head with WWE as much as it is just trying to grow our own product. And then once our product grows to a certain size, then naturally it will become a head-to-head thing.
Baby
steps.
I
mean, at this point, we're still only 11 years old,
right?
As a company, but I feel like right now we've got a good group of guys, and we've got the right business plan as far as like taking it on the road, and ever since we've been on the road, we've found that the live crowds, different crowds, as opposed to having the same crew every week coming into the Impact Zone, it's definitely added to the energy level of the shows, and when the crowd is more energized, you yourself as the performer get more energized. It's just the nature of the beast.
Well, and it certainly helps out with all the performers there. I mean, it's because you're getting different crowds. You're seeing what works in different areas, because not every area is the same. Not every area of the United States, or even over in Europe and other travels, as you obviously know. But
right.
It can't hurt for business either, because to just have one conglomerate and one choice, it's never going to do anything. It's just going to make everything stale. So, I mean, personally, I hope you guys, get bigger and bigger, because it's just going to make everything more fun.
Well, I think right now the trick is trying to widen the spotlight on us and get more people aware of the product.
Right.
And if we can grow that fan base slowly but surely, it's very rare that people watch our show. My opinion is it's very rare that people watch our show and decide it's not worth, investing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I think it's just a matter of once we get the people aware of the product, they're there to stay. And, I definitely feel like Frankie and myself, we're definitely reasons to watch the Impact show, and we're definitely reasons to watch tag team wrestling in TNA.
Well, and I think that's definitely a big difference that you guys have over the WWE is your attention to detail on the tag teams, and both with you and Frankie, as well as Aries and Bobby Roode. You guys just enjoyable at all times. Even to have a seasoned vet like Chavo out there doing his thing, it's a great thing to see the art of tag team wrestling still going on strong, and you guys certainly have it down pat.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was Frankie and I sort of saw the writing on the wall a couple years ago when Beer Money had split up, and the Motor City Machine Guns were sort of fighting through injuries, and we realized that there was a sort of a vacancy in terms of the tag team division. So that was our idea. We wanted to get together and sort of become the Beer Money or the Motor City Machine Guns. And, it didn't take us very long to sort of catch on and get to where we are.
Now, obviously, I mean, with that, and you guys are still coming on strong with the Aces and Eights storyline, and now adding AJ, you know, a good friend of yours, into the mix. Do you think, you know, having AJ there, being in almost the Sting role of the late, you know, '90s WCW NWO feud, do you think it's going to cement him more and show the audience that he's, you know, the top guy in TNA?
Well, that remains to be seen. I've always thought that AJ was one of the top guys.
Yeah.
I think this just sort of shows his versatility as far as a character.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, all I can say is to the TNA fan base, you got to stay tuned and see what happens.
Well, certainly. I mean, and you know, like a guy like AJ, like yourself, like Joe, you know, you guys are really the crown jewels of TNA. You've been there since the beginning. So it's just great to see you guys, you know, still in there, still hanging in there with, like, you know, Kurt Angle, Sting. You got you know, the former Dudley Boys.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's just great to see that mix still in there, and you know, obviously with Hulk in there as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's the good thing about, like, having those guys around. Like, it was the hard work of guys like AJ and James Storm and Joe and myself that sort of brought the attention, so that someone like Kurt Angle would look at TNA and say, all right, well, this is a viable place to apply my trade. And the same thing with Hulk. You know, there was a long time where, you know, won't he, is he going to be a part of this? And finally he decided, yeah, it was worth doing. And you know, sort of getting back into the swing of things with TNA, or getting into the mix with TNA. You know, it's having Hulk, having Bischoff, having those guys be a part of the company has definitely brought a lot of attention to us. And now, you know, with their input, we've gotten to where we are now, and continually trying to grow and make the product better.
And just off wrestling for a minute, you're a huge comic book fan.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly right.
I actually, I actually saw it was kind of a relatability thing for myself, because I saw an interview with you, and it looked like you were doing it via Skype, and behind you was just boxes of comic books, and I'm the same way with movies. And I said that I'm like, the collection, it just hits that. When somebody walks in, it's that holy shit factor. Like when they walk into my room with all the movies around, it's like, holy shit. And I'm like, do you know how many you have?
It's probably close to, let's see, I've got 42 short boxes, and I think there's like 200 maybe in each box. So
that's a bit, you know.
Yeah, there's a good quantity.
It's like the geek layer. It's perfect.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
And you're a Marvel guy, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
I've been Marvel most of my life. I'll read the occasional DC or Vertigo, but it's very few and far between. It depends really more on the creators
and the writers too.
Marvel for any reason.
How do you feel with the movies coming up? Are you a fan, or?
Absolutely, man. I'm always happy when more eyes. I like knowing that I've found these comic books out, but I also like knowing that the more eyes that get to those books, you know, the better it is for those guys that are working hard and creating. And so, like, to know that, you know, the Avengers did so well, and Iron Man 3 is doing well this year, and, you know, the last Spider-Man movie, and, you know, the Wolverine movie coming out this summer, you know, it just brings more and more attention to these characters that I've grown up enjoying. And, you know, the more successful that it is for them, the longer that they're going to continue to tell these good stories.
I gotta ask you, what did you honestly think of that first Wolverine movie?
It was okay. Like, it wasn't until, like, I enjoyed it for what it was. Like, I recognized that, like, they changed a lot of the mythology.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's hard. I feel like it's hard for these screenwriters to sort of play two sides, because there's the fans that are so deeply involved and attached to the characters that everything matters. And then there's the characters that, or the people that never heard of the character. You're trying to gain new fans but please the old ones.
Yeah.
And so, like, I understand when things get changed, you know, for whatever reason. But, you know, the big talk about the Wolverine movie was like the change in Deadpool and things like that.
Yeah.
And I understood it. I understood that you know, they changed it. It wasn't really a great change, but you know, in their eyes, they probably didn't think that Deadpool would be, to the non-comic book fan base, they might not have thought that was like a character worth investing in.
Right.
Not realizing that he was such a popular character with the comic book you know, the comic book fan followers. Yeah, so I mean, the backlash really hit hard. But I mean, I watched it and was like, it wasn't bad. Like, it wasn't the worst movie. You know, I saw Ghost Rider and I wasn't real happy with it. But the first Daredevil movie didn't do anything for me. So I mean, those changes to me were enough where it made me not like the movie. The differences that they made in those movies versus the Wolverine movie.
I wasn't able to catch any of the well, at least I didn't catch the second Ghost Rider, but that Wolverine movie, that was the only time I ever wanted to walk out of a film. I was so upset about it. But come see, come saw.
Right.
But what do you think? What do you think the chances are that they are going to move forward with the Deadpool movie? Because I mean, personally, for me, that would be the epitome of Marvel movies to come out. And honestly, I know that they've been talking about, you know, Ryan Reynolds because of the snarkiness and and Deadpool's said it in the comics himself. But I think you could play a pretty good Deadpool.
Oh, sure. You know, why not trade me for Ryan Reynolds despite the lack of worldwide knowledge about me? But that
it doesn't matter because you're going to be under a mask the whole time.
That's a good point.
And you can still come out. And you know what? Fine. You know, Reynolds can do the voice then.
Well, it worked for Tom Hardy in the last Batman movie. He was under oath the whole time too. So I'm up for it. If you guys know somebody that I should talk to, send them my way.
The minute that I find that guy, I'm going to send him your number.
Speaking of Bane for a moment, also from Wikipedia. It says here, I am. I'm just fact checking. It also says you appeared in the parody film 30 Nights. Let me get this out. 30 Nights of Paranormal Activity with the Devil Inside, the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and you played Bane. Me. You were Bane.
Yep. I was Bane.
Oh my God,
that's awesome.
Now, how many times when people you said you were going to be in a movie, how many times do you have to repeat that title to people?
You know, it's funny. I didn't have to at all. Like I didn't publicize it. I didn't make a big deal of it. It's just like all of a sudden, like people now saw it, and every once in a while I'll get the question on Twitter or something like that. And it's sort of uncredited. Like I didn't realize this till after it came out, but they don't have me listed in the cast. They have me listed under the stunts.
Really?
Because it was a stunt role. Yeah, because it was a lower budget film, so I think for the union's sake, they couldn't bill me under the cast. I mean, that's my understanding. I could be completely off base. They may not have wanted to. They may have been so upset with my performance that they didn't want to tell me. But yeah, like it wasn't even billed as like under the cast list. I'm under the stunts. So, but yeah, I mean that was something that came up, and they needed somebody that could do his own stunts and still play the character. And I was fortunate enough to get that and had fun with it.
Now, does your wrestling background help out with that, especially in the stunts department?
Yeah, I mean, I have an agent out here that sort of submits me for stuff, especially that leans towards its own stunts. You know, looking for people that are willing to get a little physical and do stuff. So, I mean, it certainly lends itself to that, being a professional wrestler. So,
all right, I just got to ask this question: how hard is a kick from Loki?
I have lost feeling in my lower extremities from one in the past.
Because you know, I
it's
mean,
been a while since I've taken one, but yeah, those hurt. They're up there with Samoa Joe kicks. I mean, I don't want you to think that Joe's hitting me with flowers.
Oh no, that's a big tree trunk. But you know, just seeing Loki, just the way he just hauls off, and he looks like he has no disregard for anyone. I'm sure he's a great guy, but it just looks like he really gets into it. And I mean, it works, and it makes me believe it that you're just getting your ass kicked.
Well, because I was. Plenty of times where I walked out of there or limped out of the ring. You know.
Well, it's like one of those things where you always hear, you know, of someone just coming in, you know, the old mouth breather statement of, oh, you know, wrestling's fake, you know, they know other. It's like you watch some of those kicks, especially now. You guys, a lot of you guys, incorporating that Japanese style, that stiff style. I mean, and you know, Brian's probably the big kick guy.
Right.
So I mean, just seeing you guys just haul off and wail, I can't even imagine what the rides afterwards are like.
Yeah, I've taken my share of hard kicks, so
Quite a bit of ice packs and
I'm not
grunting.
an expert, but I know what I'm talking about.
Oh man.
Well, we got Christopher Daniels talking with us on the Mike and Billy Show.
We don't want to take up all his time.
No, I'm sure he's gotta get some beauty sleep in, right, Chris?
I'm actually going to go hit the gym, man.
Oh,
I had a long
look at
day,
that!
I gotta
Now,
go hit the gym.
now
So.
I feel awful because I'm going to sleep.
Because we're gonna be lazy couch potatoes.
But the TNA. Now, here's another. Actually, before we wrap up, you guys, it's still TNA, right? It's not Impact Wrestling. It's TNA Impact Wrestling.
It's TNA Impact Wrestling.
Okay.
It's just they're trying to rebrand.
Because there was a point where they were trying to just call it Impact, right?
Well, I mean, the show is called Impact, but the brand is TNA Impact Wrestling.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Thank you for clarifying that. So TNA Wrestling SLAMMIVERSARY number 11 in Boston, the Agganis Arena over at BU, this coming Sunday, June 2nd. It's live on pay-per-view. You can get tickets still available. And, of course, TNA Impact live every Thursday at the new time, 9 p.m. on Spike TV. Did I get all that right?
Yeah, and I also want to say this. Frankie and myself, because we're such comic book fans, we're going to be appearing at Kamikaze, which is it's on 407 Highland Avenue in Somerville. What's the square there? Davis Square?
Davis Square,
yep.
Yeah.
Very cool.
We're going to be there from 4 to 6 on Friday on May 31st. Signing autographs, selling delightful T-shirts with our visage on it, and anybody that wants to buy me a comic book is welcome to join.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right.
So
Awesome.
you can go to kamikaze.com, and I think that's COMICAZI.com. So check that out and come see us on the Friday if you're not going to come see us on the Sunday.
Absolutely.
Or come see us all 3 days.
Why not?
Yeah,
Indeed.
that's a
Make
killer.
weekend.
That's a Memorial Day weekend, if I
There you
dare
go.
say so.
Well, thank you, Chris, for coming on. And absolutely, next time we got to have you in studio.
All right, man. My pleasure, guys. Thanks very much.
We'll fly out.
All right.
We got to work on a budget first, but then we'll get you out here.
That sounds good. That sounds good. I'll probably be there before you guys come out here. So maybe we'll just do it out in Boston way.
All right,
Sounds
that's
good to me.
All right, man. Well,
All
we'll
right.
see you Sunday.
All right, man. Thanks very much.
Take it
Take
easy.
care.